On behalf of School of Law IGNOU, Indira Gandhi National Open University, I extend my warm welcome to our chief guest, Justice Chalmeshwara, and all the dignitaries on the dais, and all the participants, all my faculty member and the staff members who are present here. I request that we should proceed for lighting the lamp. I request the chief guest, Justice Chalmeshwara, Professor Nageshwar Rao, Professor Sushma Yadav, Professor K. Elumalai, to please lighten the lamp and inaugurate the ceremony. Now I request Professor K. Elumalai, Director, School of Law, to kindly give the introduction of the chief guest and give an overview of our seminar.
Today's chief guest is function, Honorable Mr. Justice Chalmeshwara, Judge Supreme Court of India, and also I extend a warm and cordial welcome to the dignitaries and authorities of University, Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor, Director of the Schools and Divisions, one day National Seminar on the Preamble of the Constitution of India, and our own participant in the refresher program, and other officials of the Indira Gandhi National Open University. I again, to introduce the Judge of the Supreme Court to the audience, I will be committing a mistake. However, it is we all will be keen to know how that person reached in a small village in Krishna district of Andhra Pradesh to the highest seat of the Supreme Court of India. We all will be interested in that. I will give brief idea about this. Justice Chalmeshwara was born on June 23, 1953 in a small village in the Krishna district of Andhra Pradesh. He had his early education up to 12th standard at Hindu High School at Machilipatnam in the Andhra district, and he has graduated from BSc Science from the Loyola College Madras, and he has also graduated in law from the Andhra University in the year 1976, and he was designated as the senior counsel in the year 1995, and he was appointed as the additional advocate general on 13th October 1995. And thereafter, he was elevated as the additional judge of the High Court of Andhra Pradesh on 26th June 1997, and as a judge with effect from 17th May 1999. And thereafter, he was elevated as the Chief Justice of the Guwahati High Court on 3rd May 2007. Thereafter, he was transferred to the Kerala High Court and assumed charge as the Chief Justice of Kerala on 17th May 2007. Finally, he was elevated as the Judge of the Supreme Court on 10th October 2011. I have to add few more words. Although in the judicial system, the judges generally, they give the opinions along with other brethren judges, but as on today, Justice Chalmeshwara is known for giving different opinion or the dissenting opinion in legal parlance. As far as my knowledge goes, he has in most of the constitutional important matters, he has given dissenting opinion. The recent being on the Commission of the National Judicial Appointment Commission, he has given the dissenting opinion. I would like to add it. I recollect as student of law when in the 1967 the Golaknath case, it was a minority opinion about the basic structure of the Constitution of India, and the Golaknath case in the minority opinion held that preamble was not the part of the Constitution of India. However, in the same judgment in the famous Kesavananda Bharati case, the minority opinion came as the majority opinion, holding the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be amended by the legislature. Analogous to this, today the dissenting opinion given by the Justice Chalmeshwara in the National Judicial Appointment Commission is going to become the majority opinion in the days to come. With brief reference, coming back to the preamble of the Constitution of India, and I must say that the preamble has three major sources. One is the Constitution of India Bill in 1895, which later on described the Home Rule by Annie Besant. Then the second source for the preamble is that the preamble drafted by the B.N. Rao, who was the then advisor to the Government of India till 1935. The third source for the preamble is the drafting committee of the Constitution of India. And I would like to say here very briefly, the drafting of the preamble made by the drafting committee was ultimately adopted by the Constitutional Assembly on 17th October 1949 by the members of the Constitutional Assembly. There were 22 members participated in the debates of the Constitutional Assembly, and there were 8 amendments was moved, out of which 6 was defeated, 1 was negatived, 1 was withdrawn. Finally, the preamble of the Constitution, as drafted by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, whose birthday celebration we are celebrating today, that same has been come to this. Thereafter, only one amendment has been introduced since independence, that the 42nd Constitutional Amendment, by which the word social secular is added. With this brief, now today's seminar will focus on this mainly on what was the goals and ideals visualized at the time of the frame of the Constitution. The second focus will be on whether these goals have been achieved or not, and if not achieved, what are the obstacles faced the legislature and the political and the executive, the judicial organs, and the fourth will be whether is there any ray of hope for to get this goals and ideas realized in the days to come. This will be the main focus of the seminar. With this brief introduction, let me request Honorable Justice Mr. Jessav to deliver his inaugural address. Please, sir.
Good morning to you all. It is indeed a great honor to be here this morning. As judges, though we do occasionally get an opportunity to interact with academicians, but the opportunities are very limited for various reasons. And an opportunity like this to be in one of the premier institutions of this country is certainly an honor, and I am grateful for the honor conferred on me by this invitation. And as a sitting judge of the highest court of this country, if I am to really address you, deliver the inaugural speech, preamble is one of the ingredients of a legislation. No, it's not necessary that every enactment should contain a preamble. There have been enactments which do not contain a preamble, which can be properly so called. But broadly you can say that it's established legislative practice. The idea behind any preamble is normally to broadly indicate what is the purpose sought to be achieved by a particular statute. What are the values the statute seeks to establish? When I talk about values, I'm not talking about the moral values, I'm talking about the legal values. And to indicate broadly what is the scheme of the particular enactment of which the preamble is being studied. Now, a preamble to the Constitution is also required broadly to serve all these purposes. But there is an essential difference between an ordinary legislation and a constitution. Constitutions are legal documents framed or adopted by the bodies politic to create a fundamental legal framework for the governance of the society. They are supposed to be made for, if not eternity, for permanency. The word permanency once again can be the subject matter of interpretation. The safer perhaps expression is they are expected to endure a long period. And if there is the idea of establishing a constitution or adopting a constitution, those who are responsible for creating a legal framework must have a clear vision as to what kind of a legal framework the body politic desires to have when they are drafting or adopting a constitution. what are the goals of the society and what kind of a governing system which is planned to be created under the Constitution are matters which are to be very clearly understood before a Constitution is framed. Now, this understanding necessarily comes from various factors. The history of the particular society which is adopting a new constitution, its own long experience of what are the problems of the society, both on economic, social and political front, and how the society desires to or dreams to perhaps to get over those problems and move on to establish a better society. See, this is the starting point of the framing of any constitution. So necessarily a basic principle, a concept is required to be formulated, and that formulation becomes the preamble. The rest of the Constitution is an elaboration of those ideas which are encapsulated in what we call a preamble. So when we look at we call it a preamble here. It was, if you recollect, if you go through the history and the debates of the Constituent Assembly, one thing which was very predominant in the minds of those who are responsible for the drafting and adopting the Constitution while they were framing the preamble was the American Declaration of Independence. If you compare the language of the Declaration, American Declaration, and the preamble to the Indian Constitution, you find striking similarities, because they were ideas which inspired humanity over a few centuries, and human beings as a society, forgetting about the territorial and geographical and cultural differences among the various parts of the global society, cherish certain basic values. Everybody wishes to live in a just society. Everybody wishes to live in a pleasant society where there are certain values which assure the human dignity. Everybody would like to live in peace and live with dignity which is no less than that of any other fellow human being in the very society in which the individual is living. And everybody would like to be in a society where certain amount of freedom of thought and expression, freedom of action is desired. I would like to dress the way, like barring formal occasions where certain dress codes are prescribed, each one of us would like to dress in a way which we like, eat what we wish to eat, and conduct ourselves and our lives in a manner which are pleasing to us. Well, but necessarily, of course, in these matters, since we are living in a society, just as we love and we cherish our liberties and our own desires, we must also learn to respect the liberties and rights of our fellow human beings as individuals and society as a body. Now, all these ideas go into the making of a preamble. the core philosophical beliefs of the society for which a constitution is being framed. When I talk about philosophical beliefs, I'm not talking about religious philosophy, I'm talking about the political philosophical beliefs. As we know, at least in the 21st century, in the early part of 21st century, the various political ideologies which held sway over humanity in the last few hundreds or last 2 millennia, and at least for the last 300-400 of years, the political philosophy, the liberal democracy, the liberal democratic philosophy is one political philosophy which dominated a large part of humanity. Starting perhaps from Magna Carta, or where do you fix the starting point is a different matter. It requires a debate by itself. Is it Magna Carta, the French Revolution? I don't want to go into that debate at this stage. But as ideas, slowly human societies started believing that more liberal governing systems are required. That the individual, the citizen, should have more freedom, and the state should have minimal role and play a limited role in regulating the lifestyles of individuals. It is we know the development of the 20th century political process. Certain parts of humanity embraced a particular political philosophy based on the doctrine of Karl Marx. I don't want to enter that metaphysical difference between what exactly is a liberal political democracy as understood in India or US or any one of these countries where this model of democracy is practiced, and the difference between that's beyond the scope of my address today. But certainly they represent two different political philosophies. I suppose there can't be any dispute about it. In fact, I remember one of those famous statements of an American jurist in the context of the American Supreme Court. He said, when half of the court believes in Adam Smith and the other half in Karl Marx, the result is not law but philosophy, he said. I don't want into that area now. Question is, broadly we adopted a hybrid variety of political philosophy. In fact, if you check up the Constituent Assembly debates, and if you check up the history of the Indian national struggle and the beliefs of the leaders who were at the forefront, this Marxist economic theory played a significant role in formulating the ideas and ideals of some of these great leaders like Nehru. Though Pandit Nehru may not be the only person who is responsible for this whole thing, but he played a very dominant role. Similarly, many others, even those who did not contribute to that particular political philosophy, broadly believed that the Indian society, with all its economic disparities and social differences, is required to be a more just and integrated society, where the differences are required to be submerged. And with these ideas in the background, the Constitution was framed. And all these ideas in the form of a capsule were put in the preamble. If we look at the language employed, to my mind, the most crucial words in the preamble are which indicate what exactly is the purpose of this. The crucial words are to secure to all its citizens the various values mentioned in the preamble. When the framers of the Constitution making the preamble, they indicated that the whole idea of drafting this Constitution is to secure certain values. What are those values? Justice, social, economic and political, or to put it briefly, justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. These are the four values in the various spheres of human activity. To secure this to all the citizens of India, this arrangement is being made, that is a proclamation made in the preamble. Whether preamble is a part of the Constitution or not a part of the Constitution, what is the role to be, is a debate which can go on. Well, opinions have been expressed from time to time, as Professor Elumale was mentioning. At some point of time, Supreme Court held that is no part of the Constitution. At a later point of time, it struck a different movement. That's a different matter. The debate can go on endlessly. But point is, does it have any role in interpreting the Constitution or understanding the Constitution is the question. Or is it simply a poster card or something like those titles which appear when you watch a movie. Before the movie starts, you find so and so acted, so and so directed, so and so. Is it simply that or nothing more than that? I believe it has a greater role, more serious role than anything. It's not simply a tag, or it's not a ornament there. It must necessarily animate anybody who has the responsibility to interpret the Constitution. When I talk about interpretation of the Constitution, it's not necessarily judges. Everybody in this country has an obligation to understand and interpret the Constitution at whatever level it is. A citizen has a duty or a need to understand what is the Constitution. Only when a citizen knows what is the Constitution, he can assert his rights or discharge his obligations as a citizen. Similarly, everybody who is connected with the administration of this state is bound to understand the Constitution to the best of his ability, of course, and interpret it. And while interpreting it, he is bound to have the background of ultimately what is it if an officer is to discharge a particular function. Eternal question before the officer should be, what is the purpose sought to be achieved by exercising this particular authority by me? What is it that the Constitution and the laws ordain me to do? This question must always be kept by anybody who is interested with the state's power in whatever modicum it is within the administration. That's why it is always said the first interpreters of the law and Constitution are the administrators. Maybe it starts at the first desk in the Secretariat, either in Delhi or in any state capital. What is affectionately called in this country by those small babus who prepare the first note on any administrative decision. They are the first interpreters of the law and Constitution. From there to the highest court, everybody connected with the administration of law in this country in whatever facet, in regulating the public affairs or dispute resolution systems like judges, each one of us is required to keep this in the background. I wish you all the best, and I'm once again grateful to the organizers of this seminar, the university, and each one of you for giving me this great opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Justice Chelmareshwar, my colleague Professor Sushma Yadav, and my distinguished colleagues who are present over here and who are at the various regional centers. We are organizing this Constitution Day for the first time, and it is on behest of the initiative taken by the Government of India to organize 26th of November as the Constitution Day. The Constitution, it gives us the fundamental rights. It gives us the directive principles of state policy. It talks about our structure of republic. This republic structure, this is quite distinct from US structure. It is also different from UK structure. This structure is a unique one, and it has tied all of us in one national bondage. Different cultures, different languages, different ideologies, different philosophies. We express our differences also freely, but when it comes for the national issues, we all are one. And maybe this backdrop has forced our government to look into this constitution and see that this constitutional spirit, it may enthuse all of us to work for the nation.
Now I request Professor Sushma Yadav to kindly give a vote of thanks.
I, on behalf of the entire university, on behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and on my personal behalf, thank Honorable Justice Justi Chamaleshwar, who really guided us into the preamble, the functioning of the preamble, the philosophy of the preamble, the ideas of the preamble, and the direction of the preamble that's before us. And the best part of his address was that he's given us a line to think and work. Each one of us, when we are performing our duty, must think of the Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution, and the commitment that our authority or our position or our chair has given to us in discharging our function, whether we are really ensuring the justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, and finally the dignity of the individual, which is inherent and running through our Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.